Yeah, that wasn't the important point. The important point is that sustainability requires creativity, lots of creativity, so that sustainability students and professionals are able to integrate and digest intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, the global and local challenges, huge local and global challenges that we have in our times, and make them also more digestible for the public, because otherwise we won't be able to solve any of these challenges. So from my perspective, sustainability is about learning how to live in this planet as if we were here to stay. What do I mean by that? Is that we have to learn to build and nurture mutually beneficial relationships between the diverse components of systems. Now, this concept of mutually beneficial relationships is key, it's very important here. I hope it makes sense to you. The more diverse the components of a system are, the more sustainable the system can become. But the more diversity, the harder it is to cultivate and maintain a strong mutually beneficial or reciprocal relationships. And this is one of the sustainability problems in the US right now. This is one of the problems of sustainability in the US right now. This country is highly diverse, but it needs to invest way more into building reciprocity. Now, okay, I guess there is a time lag when you move the slides forward. It's all right, we're adapting here. So I think many people in this country are finally getting this point that we need to make the best out of this diversity that we have. It's one of our main assets. Perhaps our leadership is not quite there yet, but they will get there. Perhaps climate change will help with that. Now, these mutually beneficial relationships occur naturally in ecosystems. It's the normal thing, the dominant form of organization in nature. Life is based on reciprocity, not competition. The problem is that for the last few hundred years, we have created a global society based on the false belief that competition is the most natural type of relationship. This is false, this is a false belief, and makes our society fundamentally unsustainable. So a priority here is to change that belief. A main task for sustainability professionals is to help society to build, maintain, and cultivate these reciprocal relationships I was talking about between humans from diverse backgrounds, colors, cultures, etc., but also with themselves and with non-human beings, between cities, within governments, businesses, with future and past generations, with the planet as a whole, and also with the mysterious aspects of being human. So we have to really make all these components, all these elements work together for the benefit of each one and everyone. So how do we prepare students at ASU to do that? We prepare students through teaching sustainability competencies. First, systems thinking allow students to understand the complexity of mutually beneficial relationships, and also how to create relationships between relationships. So you have one important competency is this one: systems thinking, complexity, ecosystems approaches, etc. Then we need to think these relationships strategically to ensure that they become and stay mutually beneficial in the future. So here you have the strategic and future thinking competency. Even more important, we have to create these reciprocal relationships, not only internally, but between individuals. So sustainability cannot be just an individual achievement, and it's not something that one does on his own or her own. It requires these interpersonal relationships and competencies. And there are others. There are global competencies, justice competencies, etc., etc. So our curriculum is based on how students really become competent in all these ways of thinking and all these areas of action. As you might have guessed by now, a sustainability degree is not just about acquiring abstract knowledge on how the world works, but also how to transform it for the better, which involves personal commitment on the part of students towards self-transformation, because we are part of the world and we cannot foster change unless we learn first to how to change ourselves. So let's move into then where they're already into the difference between other sciences and sustainability. How does sustainability compare to other sciences? Traditionally, science looks at relationships between or within similar components, similar, not diverse components, like in the case of sustainability. And then when they have draw the boundaries of these similar components, disciplines are established to break up these components even into smaller pieces, and then or break down actually the components into smaller pieces and find the essence about them. Sustainability instead focuses on understanding and fostering relationships between that which is different, as I said before. Science traditionally, for instance, divides nature from humans. If you study biology, you will not deal much with humans. If you study sociology, you can forget probably about non-human beings or ecosystems. If you study engineering, you will focus mostly on things, on non-living things. Sustainability brings all these things together. So let me use the metaphor of designing a car to get this point across. Traditional science would focus on specific car parts to improve the vehicle's performance, whereas sustainability science would see the car in relationship with the driver, with people, with cities, with environment, etc. So we'll see the car in different contexts, and then the design of the car wouldn't be just about a better performance of the motor or of the vehicle, but a better performance in all these contexts with trade-offs, right? Now we enter into love and power. Let's add love and power to this equation. A question for you would be, what do sustainability, love, and power have in common? What they have in common, as you see in this diagram, is that they are all about relationships. Another question, if sustainability is about mutually beneficial relationships, as I have been discussing up to now, what type of relationships are love and power about? Before answering that question, let me explain what we mean by love, or what I mean by love. Now, few people associate sustainability with love, but you may be surprised to learn that love has been present in sustainability literature since the beginning. Donella Meadows, who is one of the founders of sustainability, one of the authors of The Limits to Growth in a report in the 1970s, yeah. She was already discussing love in relation to sustainability, and she wrote the following: one is not allowed in the industrial culture to speak about love, except in the most romantic and trivial sense of the word. Anyone who calls upon the capacity of people to practice brotherly or and sisterly love, love of humanity as a whole, love of nature and of our nurturing planet, is more likely to be ridiculed than to be taken seriously. So Donella Meadows here is identifying a problem and saying that we need to pay more attention to love. So you can see what type of love we're talking about. It doesn't have to do with jealousy, attachment, or dependency between people. It's a different type of love. So let's go back to the question. If sustainability is about mutually beneficial relationships, what type of relationships are love and power about? Power relationships assume a separation between you and me and others and they, etc. It starts with the fact of we are separate. Power is a process of the intellect through which we create an image of these other elements that we separate, and then create a relationship based on that image. So the power relationships are not as real or as human, perhaps not as complete as love relationships, because they are based on images. So I create an image of something I can manipulate or control out there, and then I build a relationship based on that image, not based on the whole essence or presence of the other. Love relationships instead assume undifferentiation. It's not, but on the choiceless awareness and on undivided attention. In order to experience love or feel love, you have to be fully there. You have to be attentive. It's not just, if you create an image of something or someone, you are already not, closing the possibility of love. These are two very different types of relationships, but both are natural and both are necessary. So going back to sustainability, mutually beneficial relationships can be attained when there is a good balance between love and power. The problem is that in our industrial, individualistic, and competitive culture, there tends to be an imbalance between love and power. So the big sustainability question is, how can we rebalance love and power? This is something, there are many things that we can do to do that, and many solutions that can be applied to rebalance this relationship. And if you enroll in our program, you will work on some of these solutions, right? Perhaps not explicitly saying that you are rebalancing love and power, but in practice, you will be doing that. So I'm just going to mention one of the ways as an example in which in my own work, I work towards this rebalancing. I work with indigenous people in the Ecuadorian Amazon and take students there in study abroad programs, as Bridget was mentioning. Indigenous cultures are still local and localized, embedded in ecosystems, and do not differentiate so much between humans and non-humans. They do not privilege the intellect or the images that the intellect produces as much as we do. They work more with other senses. They are more present. When they walk in the forest, they perceive not only the trees in terms of what species of the scientific name of the tree and all that, they feel the tree in multiple ways, right? They are more aware and pay more attention to their surroundings. So, and they maintain a better balance between love and power, and we can learn from them, not to become indigenous or to go back to the forest, but we can learn from them tools and processes that will help us to find a new balance in our own culture. So learning to embody our relationship with trees and birds and other elements of the natural world can help us to improve also and rebalance our relationships with other human beings. And this is key for the type of transitions that we need in terms of sustainability. So in this case in Ecuador, through this cultural immersion, the students can learn to nurture our own relationship to the planet. I will finish with another quote from our beloved Donella Meadows. So let me finish with this last quote from Donella Meadows. She said, the deepest difference between optimists and pessimists is their position in the debate about whether human beings are able to operate collectively from a basis of love. This is important. This is sustainability, I think, at its best. If we are able to create a society that operates under the collective, operates collectively under this basis of love, I think most or all of our sustainability problems will just disappear. The problem is how to get there. But in a society that systematically develops individualism, competitiveness, and short-term focus, which unfortunately describes some of the traits of our society, the pessimists are in the vast majority. So in summary, we have to just be more optimistic and love more, and things will be solved. And as sustainability professionals, we can show the path to how to get to that point.
While you might be thinking of a question, something immediately came up for me on that first Meadows quote. The first Meadows quote about how we ridicule the people who talk about love. I immediately thought of the early presidential debates from the Democratic candidates and the Democratic candidate who talked about love. Remember when it was like 10 in one debate and 10 the next night? And everyone immediately was just all over her saying, you can't lead a country based on love. And like you said with the second Meadows quote, it just tends that the pessimism wins out in a structure that we currently have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, power is also important, right? So that there are always there are gonna be always like a need to balance the two things. And unfortunately, our government system is based solely on power and has left little room for love. So that's something that we need to modify. We need to modify governance, infuse it, not to forget that power is important, that control is important, that imposing some ideas on some people at some point is necessary, but to do it in a way in which there is an acknowledgement that we are all together into this, that we are all the same, and that if we do something to someone that is not beneficial for them in the long term, we are doing it to ourselves, right? And this is a little bit what is happening in the world right now. We believe that we can do things that are bad for others and not being affected, and that's ridiculous. That's not how the world works, right? And at some point we'll have to reckon that and create governance structures that are based on that recognition, right? That you shouldn't abuse power. We need to always use power in conjunction with love. And there were leaders in the past, I think, that understood that. And perhaps in the US, it's a little bit more difficult because of our history. And I mean, there are other things that we need to figure out, right? Other processes and issues, historical issues and issues of justice and all that we need to figure out, right? I think there are some questions.
Yes, there are. One comment from Austin just saying he didn't have a question, but wants to thank you for this seminar and he's glad he came. And then Meadow is asking, looking forward, do you think we are becoming more or less balanced with love and power? And do you mind answering that in terms of the United States as well as kind of that global perspective? And is that different?
Yeah, that's a really good question and very difficult to answer because I think right now we are at a point in which we are at a turning point. I think we are seeing both things happening at the same time. On the one hand, we're seeing that many people are realizing the importance of love and getting, doing things to rebalance. And at the same time, the same people or other people, the same people in other aspects of their life, perhaps, or other people are just withdrawing from the possibility of love, right? Completely. So we're at a very delicate moment in history. My hope is that the number of people that see the need to rebalance with love will grow, and at the end we'll have that reckoning. But at this point, it's difficult to predict, right? Because we see the two tendencies going up at the same time. It's an interesting times.
No, I was just thinking with the Meadows question, whenever we do study abroads, it's always a little bit different outside of the United States, of course, of how people may be looking forward to settling differences, just in the less competitive way. Because when you hit on it in your presentation about how competition and individualism is why we keep going in this circle of not growing forward.
Well, I think that COVID-19, for instance, has it's like a mirror, right? That has put us into all the countries. All of a sudden, have been, COVID-19 is forcing them to think about these processes. And some countries have displayed, like New Zealand or other countries, you can see that solidarity is growing there thanks to COVID-19. In other countries is the opposite, and power is becoming even bigger, and the type of power relationships, not only here, but in China, in other places, right? So it's a mixed bag, and we will see. But climate change is going to force us to really. I don't think we can deal, if we can hardly deal with the virus, with the current situation. Climate change is a much more complex issue than the virus, because it really requires to change the way we live. It requires to slow down, not because the virus forces us to slow down, but because we have to make the decision of slowing down, right? Because climate change really requires less use of resources and more rational use of our resources and our relationship with the environment and so on, right? So we have to build a new normal in which our impact to the planet is much lower, right? So that means to engineer the slowdown that COVID-19 is kind of forcing us to do, right?
Yeah. So we have one more question in the chat from Riley about study abroad opportunities. For the year 2021, ASU is offering 65 programs throughout countries around the world. The College of Global Futures has 4 programs. There's a program in Hawaii on renewable energy. There's a Singapore and Malaysia that I'm co-teaching, and that's looking at biodiverse innovation and urbanization in a biodiverse hotspot. And then I'm also co-teaching a course to Cambodia and Vietnam in June. And that course is called Countries of Historic Resilience Facing a Future of Rising Seas. And on the call, we have a professor teaching the Ecuador course. Is that you for 2021?
Yeah.
Great. Can you talk about what you'll be doing then?
Yeah, so we have created some infrastructure in the middle of the Amazon forest in a very remote community. You need like 5 hours on a canoe and 3 hours on dirt roads to get there. And there you will be working with one of the most emblematic indigenous people of the Americas, the Guarani, who had been, were uncontacted until, some groups that are still uncontacted, but until they didn't have a significant contact with the exterior until the 60s. And they have a huge tract of forest, very biodiverse, one of the most, one of the main hotspots, biodiversity hotspots in the world. And there are lots of pressures, particularly oil companies, and they have been very successful in organizing resistance to those. But they want to find ways of creating some sort of development that doesn't threaten their culture. So they want to learn how to use the forest in ways. They have been living with the forest for centuries, but they want to enhance the biodiversity of the forest and attract tourists through that. And hopefully what we hope is that we create a network of people in the world who have visited these areas, who have a personal relationship with these people, who know about the culture, they have been exposed to their language, and their language is very much connected with the ecosystems of the Amazon. And then when we have fires in the Amazon and everything, it's not just that you see it in the news and you forget about it, but really these networks will be mobilizing so that we can preserve this beauty that we have in this planet, which is the lungs of the world, which is the Amazon.
And what are the dates that you're taking students to Ecuador? And can they go to the study abroad page and mark an interest or apply for the program yet?
Yeah, that's from May 22nd to June 5th. And I'm not sure whether it's up. I think it should be. We have tomorrow. We have the Study Abroad Expo, and I'll be. You will be there probably as well, Bridget. I imagine.
Yes, I'll be in the Cambodia Vietnam room. But yeah, students, you can go check out Professor Manuel Navarete in the Ecuador room and hear about the program going to Ecuador in May of next year. That's amazing. I want to go on that trip.
We should all go.
Yes.
It's lots of fun and very transforming, because it forces you to really get out of your comfort zone and be exposed to a new reality. And that's how learning happens. Learning happens mostly when we are, outside of what we know and in an environment that pushes us into experiencing new things.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been an amazing opportunity. And by the way, when you go to Ecuador, Colin wants to be checked in your luggage, just so you know. He's starting
to take a huge bag with me.
That's right. And I'll go in your carry-on just so I can have that the food cart as it comes down the aisle. Students, thank you so much for joining us. And this is being recorded. So if you want to go back and refer to it later, you know, if there's something interesting that our professor said that you might want to cite in your papers when you're studying here. Thank you again. It's so wonderful whenever you present. We appreciate your time. It was good to have you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.